my name is Tobias Knoke. I'm a Google Play BD manager based in Berlin. I lived my last 3.5 years here in London, so it's always great to be back. And also, this day isn't as bad as yesterday, so I'm happy that we're all here, not wet or anything. So what I'm here today to talk and discuss with you is about building games for inclusive audiences. So at Google, we are committed in building games for everyone out there. And to really understand how to achieve that, we have done some research together with Newzoo on underserved audiences. And as we know, there are many underserved audiences on mobile, so we started with women first. We know there are many other underserved audiences. And what I want to do today is to share our insights and learnings with you, and also give some recommendations, because we think this is actually a strong business opportunity as well. You as a developer can grow your business by cater your game to every gamer out there. But let me start with one example. So here you can see and meet Frances. Frances is a gamer. Since she was very young, she got into gaming by her grandmother and her mother. And when she was going to high school, she got a smartphone and started to play mobile games. So far, we know the story. Everybody gets hooked on mobile games at some point. And she always chooses to play with a female character if one is available. Today, she's an active member of the gaming community in New York and is organizing meetups for people to learn more about games. So this is one gamer, but there are way more women playing mobile games than just Frances. So in fact, together with Newzoo, we found out that 49% of mobile gamers are women. And even in this talk, it's maybe not 49%, but it's way more than in my previous talks. So I think that's pretty cool. But even more interestingly and importantly, 64% of women prefer mobile over other platforms. So this is not only half of all the mobile gamers out there, they also like the mobile platform compared to other platforms. And you as a developer might be thinking, hey, this is actually a key audience which can help me to grow my business. And it should actually be key and front of center of all of your thinking. But then the next question we ask ourselves is, how does this group perceive mobile games? And what we found out, actually, women identify less as gamers than men. They talk less about mobile games. They self-identify less as a gamer, so they wouldn't necessarily say, I'm a gamer. And also, they feel more regret when paying for games. Again, this is our research, and this might be different from a case-by-case basis. But still, we found it interesting that actually there is some regret, there is some gap in identification to the gaming community, although there's a high interest in playing games. So we were asking ourselves then, why is that? Well, we looked at our very own Google Play Store. We looked at the top 100 grossing games, and we actually found out that if you look at all the icons, male icons, or basically icons featuring male characters, are used 44% more often. So that's quite a lot. And whilst we, of course, recommend you to use the icon which works best for your game and your business, because this should be front and center of your thinking, we do recognize and we do think that there might be an opportunity left on the table by having a very, very narrow approach towards your audience. So as mobile games are for everyone, we should recognize that icons are basically the entry point to the overall game experience. And you should think of whether you might be excluding some potential audiences by choosing your icon. So that's basically the research we have been doing together with Newzoo. A very, very strong audience on mobile, but women do not always feel catered for by the developers and industry, which includes us as platforms as well. But overall, we do think that there is an opportunity to build more inclusive games. And to put this maybe into a broader context, we know the mobile market continues to grow. I think this year mobile is as big as PC and console combined, so that's all great news for everyone here, and a good reason to have conferences like Casual Connect. At the same time, we do know that competition is increasing. It gets harder and harder to be strong in this space. And then one of the strategies you might want to apply is to broaden your overall audience, or to broaden your overall approach towards all the users out there. Because if a market is saturating, one of the ways to still be successful is to think of, hey, what can I change with my current strategy? How can I make the most out of this opportunity right now? And so this is why we think there is an opportunity in being more inclusive with game design and distribution. So based on the research, we have come up with 3 ideas and recommendations, which are actually just ideas from our side. I'm happy to discuss this with you. One idea to make games more inclusive, and that's basically pre-launch, just before you actually launch something, is to really think of developing for everyone out there. Now, this is easier said than done, and I'm actually have been telling you this for the last 10 minutes. But still, it's important to really recognize how diverse is your audience, or how diverse might your audience be if you go for game A or game B when you're in an early evaluation stage. And also, you want to recognize that maybe the user experience could be different. So if you develop for everyone out there, you have people also with different beliefs, ethnicities, orientations. So really think about everyone out there and whether there might be a difference for people playing your game. Because again, scale matters when you do mobile games. And also, this comes into play when you do marketing and UA, right? So if you have your game design being more inclusive, that's one thing. But on the other hand, if your UA, again, we look at the top 100 grossing charts from Google Play, the screenshot I showed earlier, if all those UA materials have only male characters, well, then you have also a very, very narrow approach to that. Again, I would never trump any rules or cost efficiencies if you know that some icons or some creatives work best. Go for it, but still it makes a lot of sense to give it a try and to test these things out. Because there are actually developers finding success with building inclusive games. And one subcategory or genre which is emerging quite strongly right now on the Play Store is the format of narrative-driven games. So storytelling, we know this from books, TVs, movies, but I think these games like Choices, Episode, and so on and so forth, you can see that they are very much on the rise. And what they try to do is they give people the option to have a strong impact on the game and the overall game experience. And also, needless to say, everyone can play these games, but we do see that women resonate with these games, and these games are also quite challenging if you think of long-term engagement and all the decisions people need to make when playing those. And actually, again, thinking from a business point of view, story-driven games belong to the category of simulation, and we have been seeing that the simulation category has risen from number 9 to number 7 out there if you rank all the game categories. So this is App Annie data based on Play Store and other platforms. And you can really see that there is an uptake for simulation games. And I think it's important to strive that building for everyone out there is not only good, but it can also help you to grow your business. Why is that? Just to conclude on these story-driven games. Well, they are fast-paced, bite-sized, they have a strong impact, they give self-identity and an emotional connection, they give a sense of community. So actually these things we found out together with Newzoo end of last year, what some women might not find in mobile games right now. So again, just one example we have been seeing in the store. So let's move from pre-launch to post-launch. Let's say you have already launched your game. You're still thinking, hey, maybe this is something I should think of. What can I do? So one thing to think about is to test more inclusive imageries, and this can be icons, but also images in the store listing. And maybe some of you know stall listing experiments. Maybe hands up, who knows stall listing experiments on Google Play? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's good that you're coming to this talk. So if you have a game on Android or on Google Play, in the Play console, you can actually run stall listing experiments. And what stall listing experiments do is you can change key elements of your stall listing, and then you do an A/B test, and we tell you what works best. Well, and why not include a more inclusive imagery when testing this? If users decide this doesn't work and the numbers are not any good, fine, but still you decide which creatives and icons are getting tested. Another thing to think of is if you're running live ops, maybe introduce some female characters in your game and see how it resonates with the community. And this also dovetails with number 3 because I think if you optimize your game or making it more inclusive, ideally it's a two-way street. So listen to your community, see how content is resonating with them. Because one thing is the data, you can see if you do stall listing experiments. The other bit is what people say in forums, in chats, and so on and so forth. One more idea or one more developer tool we have next to the stall listing experiments. Let's say you're actually changing things to your game and not only to the stall listing. We just launched very recently at Google I/O the option to have different versions of your game in different countries. So what you can do now is you can run, let's say, an alpha in the UK, an open beta somewhere else, and still have your live production build everywhere else. Which helps you to maybe say, okay, let's make my game a bit more inclusive. Let's change some things, but I'm a bit hesitant to roll this out instantly. Well, you can be with our developer tools. You can be very selective and see how the content is resonating. So I also mentioned maybe introducing some female characters in your games via live ops. Again, it's just one idea. One example I actually have is from a game called Idle Miner Tycoon. Again, hands up if you know Idle Miner Tycoon. So more than stall listing experiments, that's very cool. So Idle Miner Tycoon, it's an idle game. And what the developer, Fluffy Fairy Games, will release in June is to have female managers in their game. So managers are basically helping you to build your mine. They launched more managers, and now they're actually also launching female managers, which I think is a good thing to do. And that's one thing they are adding in their game very soon. Another example, this is not from the mobile world, and there are also discussions about this, but I think it's always good to have discussions instead of having no discussions. From the PC and console world is Battlefield 5, so the Battlefield 5 trailer included a female character as well. There are also characters in Fortnite, which is also very broad in its appeal. And actually, maybe not everybody can read this, but what I really liked is that the developers stood up and said on Twitter, "Hey, this game should be for everyone." So yeah, well, you can choose whatever you like, and then you can have fun. So this is just a little excursion or example from the PC and console world. All right. So last but not least, I talked about pre-launch, what you can do before you develop a game or to evaluate the market potential. Then secondly, what you can do to optimize your existing game. Last but not least, there is a strong key pillar to all of this, and there's a strong requirement for this. And as you may guess, this is about growing a diverse team. Because if you have a diverse team, you might be able to capture the overall market opportunity. If 10 people who are very much alike develop something for the whole world, it probably won't work. And this also resonates with the fact that 28% of people in the gaming industry are not men, so women and transgender. And we think that this is something the overall industry should care about. And if you want to be also successful with this market opportunity, you should think of having a diverse team, whatever that means for you and whatever that means for your individual situation, because I know developers range from 1, 2 to 200 to 2,000 people. 2,000 might be a bit much, but it exists. Well, because only a diverse team can capture the whole market opportunity. That's what we believe at Google. So, and last but not least, what we do at Google, and we're just at the very beginning of this, at Google, we partner with the industry to support women developers and also gamers. So one thing we were doing on International Women's Day on 8th of March this year, we were showing 5 magnificent mobile games created by women, and really we're showing that these are great games to experience and to test and to try. What I would love to see, or what I think would be even better, if we have way more of those games generally featured in our store. So it's a very inclusive and natural thing. We do this already, and I think it's good that we show these games and highlight these games, but I think that's definitely the way to go. Last but not least, what I would like to conclude with, or what we are doing as well, are our diversity and inclusion initiatives at Google Play. So many of these insights about our research I've been telling you at the very beginning come from our program called Change the Game. And you can find more information about this on g.co/changethegame. And this is an ongoing process we are updating again and again, because this is also a learning process for us, and I think for many people in this industry. So this is not a fire and forget thing. This is something you need to continuously think of and improve. Something we're doing as well, there is an initiative called Infinite Deviation. So together with Ideas United, we are thinking of ways to tackle underrepresentation in computer science, because it's also important who is developing these games, who is learning to code, and so on. And last but not least, what we also did on International Women's Day, we did not only feature games developed by women, but we also showed a video from 4 very amazing founders who built a business on Android, which I think is pretty cool to show. Last but not least, to conclude in all of this, this is just the very beginning of our efforts. And again, we are learning as a platform. We do think there is a responsibility for everyone in the industry, including us. And this is also just the very beginning of thinking of different audiences. There are many more people who might not be well represented in mobile games. So we're just getting started here. And last but not least, what I want to ask you is, have a think of this when you go back to your work, when you're developing your game. Because you, as a mobile game developer, you have the most impact on what people will play this year, next year's, and moving forward. So I hope you can join us to make mobile games a bit more inclusive. And if you have any questions, let me know, or also after the talk. Thank you very much.
You were speaking of the experiments like the Idle Miner Tycoon. They will be adding female characters. Are there any like experiments that have already been done and that you have figures to share that, for example, when added female character, that increased in revenues or?
Very good question. And actually, if somebody here in the room has one, please let me know, because we were actually looking for these examples. I'm very honest and upfront, and we were finding some examples, but not so many where we could see, okay, they have done this already, they have executed on this. So many people are just thinking of adding this. All their game has been focused on a very female audience anyway. But the next step to broaden the overall appeal to everyone out there, I think we're just at the very beginning. And when I was looking for examples, I didn't find too many, and I was happy that I found some who are just getting started. So ideally, I'm here again next year or whenever, and we can see some examples and see how this moved the needle. Still, what I would mention is that we're seeing this category of story-driven games, narrative-driven games, and other games as well. So I do think there is a strong business opportunity as well for developers. But yeah, also for us, it's something we are still learning.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, thanks for your talk. I was wondering, as a publisher of mobile games, would you think about taking responsibility regarding disabilities? Like, would you have at some point checklist for the app to see if they are accessible, like for colorblind people or hearing impaired people? And I don't know, maybe have a badge on the store saying that this game is accessible for these persons?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Again, as I mentioned, women playing mobile games is one example, and I think it's also an example where many people of us are aware. And there are even more examples we might not even necessarily be thinking of all the time, although they are as important. So we're actually looking at these things right now. At Google I/O, we mentioned an overall initiative also to be more mindful, have more mindful engagement with games and have more mindful engagement in the next Android version, which can actually help you to stop playing games at some point. And making also the store and the overall Android operating system more accessible to everyone is actually part of this as well. It's still hard to do and hard to scale. As you know, we are a very big ecosystem and we do not have 10 devices, but maybe 200 plus. But it's definitely something we're thinking of and looking into. I just cannot comment on it very more right now.
You showed that in the App Store, you felt that the icons displayed are a little bit skew a little bit more to male. So there are probably many apps that have both audiences, but for some reason the male is just bigger. That's why they have to show the male target, the male ad. Have you seen opportunities to serve both audiences at the same time? Like, are there things what developers can do that they actually show for certain people, they show the female, for others they show male?
Yeah, it's a good point. So one, I think, first of all, I agree. If also, let's say you have a male icon or a female icon, you know, that might be dovetailing with the audience, but there might still be like a very good share. So it's still just something to think of. Then secondly, changing the icons. Well, so we have store listing experiments, you can change that. Still, I think many developers and also we from a business point of view, I think it's pretty good to have one icon usually, because it helps you also when you do your marketing. And at some point, maybe you even able to build up a brand if your game has been operating for a while. Although we have also been seeing from the story-driven games that you can also have like both a man and a woman on the icon. But again, I think it should fit to the game and it should come naturally. I think no one out there wants to have a game which is actually very different, but then the icon is, because of just reason for inclusivity, you know, optimized, and then the experience will not match, right? So I think it should come naturally, and maybe for some games it's easier to change and adapt things, for others it's not. That's totally fine. I mean, at the very end, you need to decide what's best for your business, but what we want to make you aware of that you can actually grow this business by thinking of this audience. And I think we might be talking a lot about this, but are we actually doing something? I think that's a big, big difference.
Thank you for the very thought-provoking talk, and I hope to repay you with a provocative question. I apologize in advance, it would be very offensive. The previous speaker talked about the bias. So essentially, we could assume that the data you based your speech upon also has some bias. So what is the bias of your talk? So what could go wrong with the recommendations you gave us? What could be wrong with the things that are the basis of your speech?
Yes, it's a good question. I think you can ask this in every talk. But no. Well, I think it's basically what I just mentioned. If you change, so let's say you have a game which is 90% for a male audience. You just found out it's, I don't know, very, very focused on that. And then you want to change this a bit, and then actually your core audience thinks, we do not like this. But also, let's say a new audience you want to attract also thinks, well, this is not really my thing. Well, then it doesn't fit, again, it doesn't fit naturally. So I think the only things you believe in and where you think you can grow your business, so this should rather be an impulse than a recipe. And what you can do wrong is just to implement without thinking, which is also a good answer you can always tell. Thank you.